Greetings, I'm Squared here. Today we're going to talk about solving using the quadratic formula, solving quadratic equations. So it's our fifth way. You should have this already memorized because we've talked about it in class. So I've got a little sticky note. I can move it from place to place, but this is what you should have in your brain. So notice it's not written on here because it should be in your brain. I'm going to sing as we go along our little song, quadratic formula song. So let's just make sure we have the steps down. We're going to put the equation in standard form if it's not. So we'll start off with them in standard form and then we'll switch to where they're not standard form. We've got to find A, B, and C first. Notice if B and C are missing, then that means they're zeros. A will never be missing, or else it couldn't be a quadratic equation and you wouldn't solve this using the formula. So B and C are missing, they're going to be zeros. We're going to plug A, B, and C back into our quadratic formula. And the only x, this is a mistake kids make because they think that A and B sometimes have an x. The only x you'll see is on the left side where it says x equals. There's no x's in here, so remember that. And we'll find the discriminant, and then we'll simplify using order of operations. And most of the time we're going to get two answers, but sometimes we'll get no solution, and sometimes we'll get one solution. If our discriminant is, remember we talked about that yesterday, our discriminant is 0, we'll get 1. If our discriminant is negative, we get no solutions. Okay, so let's try this one. So first we're going to find our A, B, and C. A equals 1, B equals -4, and C is -7. Remember the sign in front goes with it. So we are going to first find B squared minus 4AC. So B squared minus 4AC is our discriminant. And we are going to take -4 and square it, which is 16. Then we're going to take -4 times 1 times -7, which is -7. So we end up with 16 plus 28. And if we add those together, we get 44. Okay, that's irrational. So from the discriminant, I know that I have two irrational roots. So x equals -b. Some people say opposite, but that's -4, so I know this is going to be +4, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. Already did that. That was 44. All over 2a. A is 1, so it's all over 2. Now, at this point, there's two ways to do it. So I'm going to show you the simplified square roots, but we're just going to use decimal approximations. So if I was to get this is 4 times 11. And the square root of 4 is 2, so that's 2 square roots of 11 over 2. And then I could reduce by 2 all of those, and I could get 2 plus or minus the square root of 11. Those would be my answers. Sorry, that should be equals. My approximate comes in when I put that in my calculator. So if I put 2 plus the square root of 11 in my calculator, I get 5.3. I'm rounding to the nearest tens, and if I go arrow back and put a minus in, I get -1.3. So those are my two approximate solutions, or this is my exact solution. We're going to use approximates. So let's try another one. Okay, we'll put our little formula over here just in case you haven't memorized it yet. So I'm not going to find the discriminant first now, I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to sing my song. A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals -10. So x equals -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So I like to sing my song because that helps me remember it. So I'm going to simplify all of this in here first. I'm going to find the discriminant first. So I got -2 plus or minus. I've got two negatives in here that are going to make a positive. So I end up with 4 plus 40, which is exactly what we got the last time, right? 44. That's funny. And then over 2. The discriminant is the same anyway, not the whole thing. That was quite close, though, isn't it? Okay, so we're going to just use our calculator now. So we're going to say, okay, by the way, if you do this in your calculator, and you don't simplify it, you've got to put parentheses right there, because if you don't and you divide by 2, it's only going to divide that by 2, and you're going to get the wrong answer. So, sorry, the parenthesis would need to be outside that negative. My apologies. Scratch that one. Okay, so I'm going to put parenthesis, -2 plus or minus, so I'm going to use plus the first time, the square root of 44. So this is where it gets a little tricky. I have to end the parenthesis for the square root. Then I have to end the parenthesis for the numerator. then I can divide by 2. So I get approximately equal to 2.3. And then I'm going to go back and just change that plus to a minus for my next one, and I get negative 4.3. So these are my approximate answers. Okay, so I'm not going to do all of these. We'll do them in class, but I don't want the video to be 50 minutes long. So let's do one where there's no b. See how there's no x? So I know that a is 2 and b is 0, and c is negative 18. So x equals negative b, that's 0, plus or minus the square root of b squared, again 0, minus 4ac all over 2a. A is 4, so 2 times 2 is 4. So these are gone, right? So I end up with plus or minus, and then 8 times 18, the negatives cancel, so 8 times 18 is 144. So I have the square root of 144 over 2. Well, I know what the square root of 144 is. It's 12. And so I have a 12 over 2, which is 6, and a negative 12 divided by 2, which is negative 6. So there I get nice, pretty integer answers. Okay, we're going to try a couple more. There's a bunch on this page, but we're just going to try some that aren't in standard form. So I am going to try this one right here. Over here. Okay, so 6x squared. Notice I don't have a b again. Well, we just did one like that, so I'll do this one. I'm changing my mind. Okay, let's get it in standard form. So I have to add 10 to both sides. So I get 8x squared minus 4x minus 8 equals 0. So a is 8, b is negative 4, and c is negative 8. So x equals, we're ready for our formula now. We have it in standard form, we have our a, b, and c. X equals negative b, so negative or opposite, so those are going to cancel, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So I come back in here and I notice there's 2 negatives. I know those are going to change to a positive. I know that when I square that I'm going to get a positive. So I'm just going to find the discriminant. Sometimes it's easier to do it that way. So 16, that's negative 4 squared, plus, because those are canceled, 4 times 8 times 8, which gets me 272. So I have 4 plus or minus the square root of 272 all over 16. So again, when I go to put that in my calculator, I have to use a parenthesis for the numerator. I'm going to put that there again so you can see it. So it's going to be 4 plus the square root of 272, and the parenthesis for the square root, and the parenthesis for the numerator, divided by 16. So my first answer is 1.3 if I round to the nearest tenths. To find my second answer, I backspace to that 4, because now I want to use the minus of my plus or minus, and that gets me negative 0.8 if I round to the nearest tenths. Alrighty, so there are a lot of other ones, but we only did those. Remember, if you ever got a negative under the square root sign, if your discriminant is negative, that means you have no solution. And yeah, we'll do the rest in class. Good luck with that. M squared, signing out.